The convergence hall was massive beyond imagination. Its walls were made of crystal that glowed with strange colors. 7,000 different alien species filled the enormous space, all of them watching the human sitting in the center, Marcus. Webb sat in a simple wooden chair that floated in the middle of the chamber. He was reading a newspaper, not a digital screen or hologram. An actual paper newspaper from Earth, the Supreme. Arbiter Thulrex looked down at Marcus from the high seat. Thulrex was an ancient being whose body seemed to shimmer and fade at the edges, existing in ways that human eyes could barely understand. His voice boomed through the chamber, translated instantly into 7,000 languages. Human Marcus Webb, you stand before the Galactic Council accused of crimes against the established order. Earth has colonized 641 star systems without permission. Your species has violated sacred treaties. Your people have ignored 17,000 warnings. The Council has reached its verdict. Earth will be punished. Your expansion will end. Do you have anything to say before we pass judgment? Marcus turned a page of his newspaper. He seemed to be reading an article about sports. The aliens in the chamber began making angry noises. Some clicked strange appendages together. Others hummed in deep frequencies that shook the air. The Empress Leandra of the Taluvian Empire stood up from her seat. Her body was covered in beautiful scales that changed colors with her emotions. Right now, they were dark red with fury. "This is an outrage," she shouted. "The human shows no respect. He mocks this council. He mocks the power of the Empire." She turned to face the thousands of alien delegates. "My people have already mobilized our war fleet. 300,000 ships. Weapons that can destroy planets. Earth will learn what happens when primitive species forget their place." Marcus slowly folded his newspaper. He looked at his wristwatch, an old mechanical device that seemed out of place in this chamber of advanced technology. "Are you done?" Marcus asked calmly. "Because I have a limited amount of time here, and I was hoping we could skip the boring parts." The chamber went completely silent. No one had ever interrupted the Supreme Arbiter before. No one had ever shown such disrespect to the Council. Thulrex leaned forward. "You dare to speak to us this way? Do you not understand the situation you are in? Your planet faces annihilation. Your species faces extinction. And you read sports news?" Marcus stood up from his chair. He reached into his jacket pocket. Every alien in the room tensed. Security systems activated. Weapons powered up across the chamber. He pulled out a piece of paper and unfolded it. It was a simple printed map of the galaxy. Admiral Kront of the Forge clans looked at the map with his advanced cybernetic eyes. He zoomed in on the details. What he saw made him freeze in shock. The map showed every council homeworld marked with a small red dot. Every military base. Every shipyard. Every command center. Every secret facility that was supposed to be hidden. And under each dot was a number. A timer counting down. The timer showed the same time. 47 minutes and 18 seconds. "This is impossible," Admiral Kront said, his mechanical voice shaking. "Our defense systems are perfect. Our worlds are protected by technology that has never failed in 10,000 years. Marcus smiled slightly. "Your defense systems are maintained by the quantum pylons at Delta Station 7. The power flows through 17 specific choke points. Each choke point is monitored by automated systems that were installed 632 years ago. No one has updated the security protocols because everyone assumed they could never be hacked." Panic spread through the chamber like wildfire. Delegates began shouting. Security officers rushed to their stations. Communication systems lit up with urgent messages. "Silence!" Thulrex's voice crashed through the chamber with physical force, making everyone stop moving for a moment. He stared at Marcus with ancient eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. "You are bluffing. No species could possibly infiltrate our systems. This is a desperate trick." "Deck 3 of this station," Marcus said calmly. "Behind the water recycling system. There is a maintenance hatch that has not been inspected in 41 years. 2 of my people have been sitting in that space for 6 months. They have been listening to everything you say in these meetings. They have been eating sandwiches and drinking coffee. One of them is waving at your security camera right now. Thulrex gestured urgently to a security officer. The officer worked frantically at a console, checking the station's internal sensors. His face went pale. "Supreme Arbiter," the officer said quietly. "Confirmed. 2 humans in maintenance Bay Alpha 77. They are eating food and one of them is waving at the camera." The silence that followed was complete and total. Marcus picked up his newspaper again and sat back down in his wooden chair. "Now that I have your attention, here is what is going to happen. You are going to sit down and listen to me. Really listen? And then you are going to make a choice about whether you want to continue with this war." He pulled out a pen and opened the newspaper to a puzzle page. "Because in 45 minutes you will either understand why threatening Earth was the worst mistake you ever made, or you will learn that lesson the hard way." Empress Lyandra's scales had turned pale white. "What have you done to our worlds?" "Me? Nothing at all," Marcus said. "Those markers on the map are not bombs. They are observers. Proof of what we can do. Every military installation you have. Every secret base. Every hidden shipyard. We have had people watching them for years. We have been inside your computer systems. We have been inside your networks. We have accessed your most secure data. And none of you ever noticed." He looked up from his newspaper. 3 days ago, the Council declared war on Earth. You sent us an official document demanding our surrender. You gave us 7 days to comply or face total destruction. So I came here to give you one chance to take it back. One chance to understand what you are actually dealing with. Admiral Kront found his voice. "You expect us to believe that humans, a species that only left their own star system 200 years ago, have somehow infiltrated the most secure facilities in the galaxy?" Marcus smiled. "I do not expect you to believe anything. I expect you to verify it. Check your systems. Really check them. Look for the things that should not be there. You have 43 minutes. Thulrex raised one appendage. "And if we refuse? If we proceed with our plans to destroy Earth? Then you will learn a very painful lesson about humanity," Marcus said quietly. "You will learn what happens when you threaten a species that spent 10,000 years fighting itself before it ever reached the stars. A species that invented thousands of ways to kill each other and then turned all that creativity toward survival in space. A species that is very, very good at war." He returned to his newspaper. 42 minutes. I suggest you start checking." Plus, chaos erupted across the convergence hall as delegates frantically contacted their homeworlds. The massive chamber filled with thousands of different voices speaking in hundreds of languages. Security teams rushed to verify what Marcus had claimed. Admiral Kront worked at his personal console, his mechanical fingers moving faster than human eyes could follow. He accessed the Forge clan's most secure military network, the network that protected their weapons facilities, the network that was supposed to be completely isolated from any outside access. He entered the deepest security protocols, codes that only 5 beings in the entire Forge clans knew. He ran diagnostic scans that should have shown a perfectly clean system. Instead, he found a message waiting for him. A simple text file that had been placed in the most secure folder of the entire network. "Hello, Admiral Kront. Nice cybernetic upgrades you got last year. The new left arm looks good. We particularly liked watching the surgery. Very impressive work. By the way, you might want to check your primary weapons platform orbiting Forge Prime, 3rd server cluster. We left you a present." Kront's mechanical heart nearly stopped. He immediately accessed the weapons platform systems. It took him 3 minutes to find what the humans had left. It was a complete blueprint of the entire platform. Every system, every weapon, every security measure, and attached to it was a detailed analysis of 17 different ways the platform could be destroyed, using its own systems against itself. The file was dated 4 years ago. Supreme Arbiter, Krant said, his voice barely functioning. They are telling the truth. Humans have been inside our most secure systems for years. Across the chamber, Empress Leandra was having a similar conversation with her military command. Her scales flickered rapidly between colors as she received report after report. Every shipyard? She whispered into her communication device. All of them? Even the hidden construction facility in the Dark Moon Nebula? She listened for a moment, her scales turning gray. I see, and they left messages? What do the messages say? She closed her eyes as her military commander read the message that humans had left in their systems. Dear Teluvian Empire, your ships are beautiful. We especially admire the craftsmanship of your hull designs. However, we noticed a small flaw in your shield generator configuration. If someone were to send a very specific frequency pulse at exactly the right moment, the shields would collapse completely. We have attached detailed instructions. You might want to fix that. Sincerely, the humans you did not know were watching. The Empress looked at Marcus, who was calmly working on his crossword puzzle. How long? She asked. How long have you been watching us? Marcus did not look up. Long enough. Supreme Arbiter Thulrex listened to similar reports coming from every major power in the Council. The Hive Worlds had found humans in their queen chambers. The Vexthari had discovered monitoring devices in their sacred crystal gardens. The Watchers of Orion had detected human observers in their dimensional refuge that was supposed to exist. Outside normal space, every single species was finding the same thing. Humans had been everywhere. Watching everything. Learning everything. Thalrex raised his appendages again, calling for silence. Human Marcus Webb, explain yourself. Explain how your species has accomplished this infiltration. Marcus finally looked up from his puzzle. It is actually quite simple. You have all been part of the Galactic Council for thousands of years. You have established protocols, treaties, ways of doing things. You trust your systems because they have worked for so long. He set down his pen. We do not have that luxury. We are new. We are weak compared to you. So we had to be smart. He stood up and walked to the edge of his floating platform. When Earth first made contact with the Council 73 years ago, you welcomed us. You gave us access to your network so we could communicate. You showed us your technology so we could learn. You taught us your languages and your customs. You were being kind to the primitive newcomers. Marcus smiled. And while you were being kind, we were watching, learning, understanding. Every system you showed us, we studied. Every network we connected to, we mapped. Every piece of technology you shared, we took apart to see how it worked. That is standard procedure for new species, Thulrex said. We expected you to learn from us? Yes, but you did not expect us to learn faster than you could teach, Marcus replied. You did not expect us to find weaknesses in systems that had existed for millennia. You did not expect a species that had spent centuries breaking each other's codes and hacking each other's networks to turn those skills toward understanding yours. He walked back to his chair. Do you know what the greatest advantage Earth has? It is not our technology. It is not our weapons. It is our diversity of thought. Humans argue with each other constantly. We challenge every idea. We question everything. We never assume that just because something has worked for a long time, it will continue to work forever. Ambassador Talver of the Peaceful Luminari Collective spoke up. His people had never engaged in war, believing instead in harmony and understanding. But why hide your abilities? Why infiltrate our systems in secret? We would have welcomed open cooperation. Marcus looked at Telver with something like sadness in his eyes. Because we knew this day would come. We knew that eventually someone on the council would see our expansion and feel threatened. We knew that sooner or later, one of the major powers would decide that humans needed to be stopped. So we prepared? He gestured to the map with all the red dots. Every one of those markers represents years of careful work. Years of our best people living in your societies, learning your ways, understanding your systems. We did not do this to attack you. We did this to survive? Empress Lyandra slammed her hand on her console. Survive? By threatening every world in the council? By holding our entire civilization hostage? No, Marcus said firmly. I am not threatening you. I am showing you the reality of the situation. You declared war on Earth. You mobilized your fleets. You planned to destroy our world and enslave our people. We are simply showing you that such a war would not go the way you think it would. Admiral Kront leaned forward. Are you saying you could actually defeat the combined fleets of the Council? 300,000 ships against whatever small fleet Earth possesses? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft but clear. Let me tell you about a war on Earth. It happened about 80 years ago, before we reached the stars. A small group of farmers and villagers fought against the largest military empire on their continent. The empire had advanced weapons, aircraft, massive armies. The farmers had simple rifles and determination. The war lasted 20 years. He paused. The farmers won. Not because they had better weapons. Not because they had more soldiers. They won because they understood their enemy better than the enemy understood them. They won because they were willing to do whatever it took to survive. They won because they never, ever gave up. The chamber was completely silent now. Earth does not want war with the Council, Marcus continued. We have no desire to fight you. But if you force us to fight, you will discover that humans are very good at war. Frighteningly good. We have spent our entire history fighting each other, learning new ways to survive, developing strategies that you cannot imagine because you have never needed them. He looked at his watch. 37 minutes left. I suggest you use them wisely. Supreme Arbiter Tholrex dimmed the lights in the convergence hall. The thousands of alien delegates quieted down, waiting to hear what would happen next. The ancient being looked at Marcus with eyes that had witnessed the birth and death of entire civilizations. Human Marcus Webb, let us assume everything you say is true. Let us assume your people have indeed infiltrated our systems and could potentially cause significant damage. This still does not explain your confidence. You speak of war as if Earth could stand against the combined might of 7,000 species. Explain this arrogance. Marcus sat down and folded his hands. It is not arrogance, Supreme Arbiter. It is mathematics. Simple, cold mathematics. He gestured to the assembled delegates. How many of the species in this chamber have actually fought a major war in the last 1,000 years? The question hung in the air. Delegates looked at each other uncomfortably. The Taluvian Empire fought a brief conflict 600 years ago, Marcus continued, answering his own question. It lasted 3 months and involved mostly territorial disputes. The Forge clans engaged in a rebellion 400 years ago that was suppressed in weeks. Most of the species here have lived in peace for so long that war is something they study in history, not something they practice. He stood up and walked to the center of his platform. Earth became a unified world only 150 years ago. Before that, we were divided into hundreds of nations that fought each other constantly. In the last 200 years alone, we fought 2 global wars that killed hundreds of millions of people. We developed weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We came within minutes of actually using those weapons and ending our own species. Ambassador Telver spoke softly. This is not something to be proud of, human. This is a tragedy. Your species' history is soaked in blood. You are absolutely right, Marcus agreed. It is a tragedy. It is shameful. We carry that shame with us every single day. But it also taught us something that you have forgotten. He looked around the chamber. It taught us that war is not about having the biggest fleet or the most powerful weapons. War is about will. About determination. About being willing to pay a price that your enemy is not willing to pay. Empress Lyandra stood up again. And you think humans are willing to pay a higher price than the entire Galactic Council? You think your determination is greater than ours? I know it is, Marcus said simply. Because we have already paid prices you cannot imagine. Let me tell you about Earth's World War II, a conflict that lasted 6 years and killed 70 million people. Entire cities were destroyed. Whole populations were exterminated. People starved, suffered, died in numbers that would horrify every species in this room. He walked slowly around his platform. And at the end of that war, when everyone had lost so much, do you know what we did? We did not give up. We did not surrender to despair. We rebuilt. We created new technologies. We reached for the stars. We took our capacity for destruction and turned it into a capacity for creation. That is what humans do. We endure. Admiral Krant activated a hologram showing the Forge Clan's fleet. Massive warships bristling with weapons. Endurance means nothing against firepower. One of our battle cruisers could destroy an entire continent on your world. Our fleet has weapons you have never seen. How do you plan to fight against that? Marcus smiled. Tell me, Admiral, how many wars have you personally fought in? Krant paused. I have commanded fleets for 200 years. I have overseen countless military operations. But actual combat? Actual war where you faced an enemy trying to kill you? The Forge clans have not engaged in major warfare for centuries. Our strength is enough to prevent conflict. Exactly, Marcus said. Your strength prevents war because everyone is afraid of your weapons. But what happens when someone is not afraid? What happens when your enemy has studied your tactics, knows why? He pulled up an ancient council document. The council informed us that such rapid expansion was inappropriate for a new species. We were told to stay in our home system for at least 500 years to prove we were responsible enough for colonization rights. 500 years. He looked around the chamber. To species that live for centuries, 500 years seems reasonable. But humans live for maybe 100 years if we are lucky. You were asking us to wait 5 or 6 generations before we could ensure our survival? We could not accept that. We would not accept that. Supreme Arbiter Thalrex was silent for a long moment. So you proceeded without permission. We did what any species would do when faced with potential extinction, Marcus said. We prioritized survival over politics. We established colonies and systems that no one wanted anyway. We built our network quietly, without making noise, without threatening anyone. He paused. But we also prepared for this day. We knew that eventually someone would notice our growth and feel threatened. We knew that eventually we would end up here, facing judgment from species that do not understand our fear because they have never needed to feel it. Empress Leandra stood up slowly. Her scales had changed to a thoughtful blue color. You said something earlier that troubles me. You said this fear should concern every species in the council. What did you mean? Marcus brought up new data. Charts and graphs showing galactic population distributions. Look at these numbers. Really look at them. The top 50 species in the Council have a combined population of 600 billion people. 70% of them live on homeworlds. If something happened to those 50 planets, you would lose more than 400 billion individuals. The chamber went quiet as delegates examined the data. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Marcus continued. Space is vast and full of things we do not understand. Humans have only been exploring for 200 years, and we have already encountered 17 phenomena. That could potentially destroy a planet 17. How? Many more are out there that we have not found yet. He let that sink in. You have built a civilization based on the assumption that your homeworlds are safe, that your defenses are sufficient, that nothing bad will happen because nothing bad has happened in thousands of years. But humans know from hard experience that the universe does not care about your assumptions. Disaster comes when you least expect it. Ambassador Telver spoke quietly. You are saying we have become complacent? I am saying you have forgotten to be afraid, Marcus replied. And fear, when properly understood, is not weakness. Fear is wisdom. Fear is what keeps species alive. He checked his watch. 18 minutes. Enough time for me to show you one more thing. Something that will help you understand why this war would be the worst possible mistake for everyone involved. Supreme Arbiter Thulrex gestured for him to continue. Speak, human. We are listening now. Marcus smiled. Good, because what I am about to show you will change everything. Marcus activated a new hologram that filled the entire center of the convergence hall. It showed a region of space far beyond the edge of Council territory. The image was dark and distorted, as if something was interfering with the sensors that captured it. 3 months ago, Marcus began, one of our deep space exploration ships detected something unusual in the Outer Veil region. We sent a science team to investigate. What they found should concern everyone in this room. The hologram focused on a star system, but something was wrong with it. The star was dimming, its light being absorbed by massive structures that surrounded it. This is a Dyson swarm, Marcus said. A collection of solar collectors built around a star to harvest its energy. But we did not build this. Neither did any council species. We checked. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Several delegates immediately began accessing their own databases to verify what Marcus was showing them. The structures are old, Marcus continued. Our scientists estimate they have been here for at least 50,000 years. They are still functioning, still collecting energy, still sending that energy somewhere. But we cannot detect where. We cannot detect who built them. We cannot detect what they are powering. Supreme Arbiter Thulrex stood up from his stood for the first time in the entire meeting. His multidimensional form expanded, filling a large portion of the chamber. This is impossible. The Council has surveyed the entire galaxy. We would have detected such structures. The Council surveyed the regions you control and the regions immediately around you, Marcus corrected. You stopped expanding thousands of years ago because you achieved stability. You had enough resources, enough space, enough of everything. You had no reason to push into the dangerous outer regions where radiation is high and resources are scarce. He gestured to the hologram. But humans push into those regions specifically because they are dangerous. Because we want colonies in places where others will not compete with us. And in those places we are finding things. Remnants of civilizations that existed before the Council. Technology that we do not understand. Evidence that we are not the first intelligent species to rise in this galaxy and probably not the last. Admiral Kront was scanning the data frantically. How many of these anomalies have you found? 43 confirmed sites, Marcus replied, ranging from simple ruins to active installations like this one. Each one represents a species that achieved spaceflight, built incredible things, and then vanished. We do not know why they vanished. We do not know what happened to them. But they are gone. He zoomed the hologram back to show the positions of all 43 sites. They formed a rough pattern around the outer edges of explored space. Some of these species might have destroyed themselves through war or environmental lapse, Marcus said. But some of these sites show evidence of external attack. Something came and wiped them out. Something powerful enough to destroy civilizations that had technology beyond what we currently possess. The chamber was completely silent now. Every delegate was staring at the hologram, understanding the implications. Earth's expansion is not just about preventing extinction from natural disasters, Marcus said quietly. It is also about making humanity too scattered, too distributed, too difficult to completely eliminate. Because if something out there decided to attack the Council, your centralized populations would be the easiest targets. 43 sites of dead civilizations tell us that this is not paranoia. This is reality. Ambassador Telver found his voice. Why did you not share this information with the Council immediately? This concerns all of us. We tried, Marcus said, frustration clear in his voice. 41 days ago, we sent a formal report to the Council about our discoveries. We requested a joint expedition to study the sites. Do you know what response we received? He pulled up an official Council document and projected it for everyone to see. The Council appreciates Earth's concern but finds no immediate threat in the reported anomalies. As Earth is currently under investigation for unauthorized expansion, all requests for Council resources are denied pending resolution of current violations. Your findings will be reviewed by the appropriate committee in approximately 18 to 24 months. Marcus looked around the chamber. You were so focused on punishing us for expanding that you ignored a potential threat that could endanger every species in this galaxy. That is why we stopped asking for permission. That is why we do things on our own now. Because we cannot afford to wait for committees and reviews when survival is at stake. Empress Leandra's scales had turned a pale, frightened color. If what you say is true, then we have made a grave error in judgment. You have made the error that every successful civilization makes, Marcus said. You assume that because you are powerful, you are safe. You assume that because you have survived for thousands of years, you will continue to survive. You forgot that the universe is bigger than you are, and it does not care about your power or your history. He deactivated the hologram and walked back to his simple wooden chair. He sat down and looked at his watch. 12 minutes, he said. In 12 minutes, those timers on all your military installations will reach 0. When they do, nothing will happen. No explosions. No attacks. The timers will simply reset and disappear, and all the observation posts my people have established will go dark. You will never find them all. You will spend years wondering if we really removed everyone, or if some are still watching. He folded his hands. But that is only if you proceed with this war. If, instead, you choose to withdraw the declaration and work with Earth rather than against us, those observation posts become something different. They become early warning systems, joint monitoring stations, shared resources that help all of us watch for threats from beyond. Supreme Arbiter Thulrex returned to his seat. You are offering an alliance? After we declared war on you? I am offering survival, Marcus replied. You have technology and knowledge that humans need. We have distribution and adaptability that you need. Together we could build a civilization that is both advanced and resilient, centralized enough to coordinate and share resources, but distributed enough that no single disaster could destroy us. He stood up one final time. The Council fears Earth's expansion because you think we are a threat to your power. But we do not want your power. We want your survival. We want every species in this galaxy to continue existing, to continue growing, to continue exploring. Because the more of us there are, spread across as many worlds as possible, the better chance we all have of surviving whatever comes next. Admiral Kront looked at the other military commanders in the chamber. They were all having quiet, urgent conversations. Finally, he spoke. You ask us to trust you, to accept your expansion, to work with you as equals. But you have infiltrated our most secure systems. You have demonstrated that you could potentially cripple our defenses. How can we trust you after that? Marcus smiled sadly. You cannot. Not completely. Not yet. Trust has to be earned over time. But here is what you can trust. You can trust that humans want to survive. You can trust that our survival depends on the galaxy remaining stable and peaceful. You can trust that we gain nothing from destroying you and everything from helping you prepare for real threats. He picked up his newspaper and held it up. This is today's edition of the Earth Daily News. The sports section I was reading earlier has an article about a baseball game. Humans invented baseball 400 years ago as a way to compete without killing each other. We turned our competitive instincts into a game. He set the newspaper down. That is what we want to do with the galaxy. Compete in trade, in science, in culture, not in warfare, because we have had enough warfare to last us for the rest of our existence. We know what it costs. We know what it destroys. We do not want it anymore. Supreme Arbiter Thulrex was silent for a long time. The entire chamber waited for his decision. Finally, he spoke. The Council will adjourn to deliberate on what we have learned today. Human Marcus Webb, you will wait here while we discuss. Of course, Marcus said, sitting back down with his newspaper. I will be right here. Working on my crossword puzzle. The delegates began filing out of the chamber, talking urgently among themselves. Within an hour, the vast space was empty except for Marcus and a few security guards. Marcus looked at his watch. The timer had reached 0 and reset, just as he had promised. He smiled to himself and returned to his puzzle. 5 hours later, the delegates returned. Supreme Arbiter Thulrex looked tired, his multidimensional form flickering with uncertainty. "The Council has reached a decision," he announced. "The declaration of war against Earth is withdrawn. Your colonies will be recognized under provisional status while we establish new guidelines for expansion. In exchange, Earth will share all information about the anomalies you have discovered, and we will form a joint task force to investigate these potential threats." Marcus stood up and nodded respectfully. "The people of Earth accept these terms." Empress Leandra approached him. "You took a terrible risk today, human. If we had not listened, if we had proceeded with the attack, many would have died." "Yes," Marcus agreed. "But I believed you would listen. Because despite everything, the Council was built on the principle that different species can work together. That principle is still strong. It just needed to be reminded." He gathered his newspaper and prepared to leave. As he walked toward the exit, Ambassador Telver called out to him, "Human Marcus Webb, one question before you go. Did you really have people in all those places? Or was some of it a bluff?" Marcus turned back and smiled. "Ambassador, the first rule of strategy is never reveal everything you know. But I will tell you this. Humans learned long ago that the best weapon is the one you never have to use. Whether we had people everywhere or nowhere, the important thing is that you believed we might. And that belief changed your decision." He waved and walked out of the convergence hall, leaving behind a council that would never look at humanity the same way again. The galaxy had not gone to war. Not today. And thanks to one human with a newspaper and a gift for strategy, maybe not ever. Our weaknesses and is willing to sacrifice everything to survive? He pulled out a small data device and activated it. A hologram appeared showing Earth's solar system. "Let me show you something. This is Earth's defensive network. You cannot see it on your sensors because we built it using techniques you do not recognize. We did not use your technology. We developed our own." The hologram zoomed in, showing thousands of small objects throughout Earth's solar system. They looked like simple asteroids and space debris. "Each of those objects is a weapons platform," Marcus explained. "Not powerful like your ships. Not advanced like your technology. But there are 50,000 of them, each one controlled by independent AI that cannot be hacked using standard methods. Each one programmed with one simple instruction: protect Earth." He expanded the hologram further. "But that is just the obvious defense. The real protection is something you would never think to look for because your species do not think the way humans think." A new layer appeared in the hologram. Lines connecting Earth to dozens of nearby star systems. When Earth began colonizing other worlds, we did not just build colonies. We built evacuation routes, backup facilities, hidden stockpiles of resources. We created a network of survival that extends across 600 star systems. If you destroy Earth, our species continues. If you chase us to those colonies, we have already prepared the next hiding places. The chamber filled with worried murmuring. "You see," Marcus continued, "you think of war as a single battle, a contest of strength. Winner takes all. But humans learned long ago that real survival is not about winning battles. It is about making sure that no matter what happens, some part of you continues to exist. Some part survives to rebuild, to remember, to eventually come back stronger." Supreme Arbiter Thulrex studied the hologram carefully. "This is a defensive strategy. You speak of survival, not victory. This does not explain your confidence." Marcus deactivated the hologram. "Because survival is victory? If your mighty fleet comes to Earth and we force you to spend years hunting us through 600 systems, how long before the Council starts questioning whether this war is worth the cost? How long before member species start withdrawing their ships because they need them for their own defense? How long before the political unity of the Council begins to crack?" He sat back down. "Wars are expensive, Supreme Arbiter. Not just in lives and ships, but in time and political will. The Teluvian Empire might be willing to spend decades hunting humans. But what about the Luminari Collective? What about the smaller species who contribute ships to the Council fleet but have no direct conflict with Earth? How long will they support this war? Empress Leandra's scales flickered. She understood exactly what Marcus was implying. The Council was not as unified as it appeared. Different species had different interests. A long, costly war against a stubborn enemy would test alliances that had stood for millennia. "You plan to turn us against each other?" she said quietly. "No," Marcus replied. "I plan to show you that fighting Earth benefits no one. You gain nothing from this war except casualties and costs. We lose everything, which means we fight with the desperation of beings who have nothing left to lose. That is the worst kind of enemy to face." He checked his watch. 29 minutes. Think carefully about what you are about to do. Because once this war starts, it will not end the way you think it will. It will end with everyone losing something. The only question is how much you are willing to lose. The delegates in the convergence hall looked at each other nervously. The certainty they had felt just an hour ago was crumbling. This was not supposed to be how this judgment went. The human was supposed to beg for mercy. Instead, he was offering them a choice that suddenly seemed far more complicated than they had realized. Supreme Arbiter Thulrex leaned back in his seat, his multidimensional form shifting uncomfortably. "Perhaps we should hear more of what you have to say, human." Marcus nodded. "I was hoping you would say that." Marcus walked to the edge of his floating platform and looked out at the thousands of alien faces watching him. Some showed fear now. Others showed anger. A few showed curiosity. He took a deep breath before speaking again. "Let me tell you the real reason I came here today," he said quietly. "It is not to threaten you. It is not to show off what humans can do. It is to prevent a terrible mistake that would hurt everyone in this galaxy." He gestured to the assembled delegates. "The Council sees Earth's expansion as a threat. 641 colonies in 200 years. You think we are growing too fast, taking too much, threatening the established order. And you are right to be concerned, but you are wrong about why it is happening." Supreme Arbiter Thulrex leaned forward. "Explain. Earth is not expanding because we are greedy," Marcus said. "We are expanding because we are terrified. Absolutely, completely terrified." This statement caught everyone by surprise. Ambassador Talver spoke up. "Terrified? Of what?" "You just demonstrated that humans have infiltrated every major power. You speak confidently of defending yourselves. What could possibly terrify you?" Marcus turned to face Talver directly. "Extinction. The same thing that should terrify every species in this chamber, but most of you have forgotten to fear it." He activated another hologram, this one showing a timeline of Earth's history. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us at every opportunity. Ice ages, volcanoes, asteroids, diseases, predators, our planet was so dangerous that 99% of every species that ever lived there went extinct. 99%. The hologram showed images of Earth's prehistory. Massive animals fighting for survival. Climate changes wiping out entire ecosystems. Disasters reshaping continents. We survived because we learned one critical lesson. Never, ever put all your population in one place. When our ancestors were just small tribes, they spread across every continent. When one group died out, others survived. When disease hit one area, people in other regions carried on. Survival through distribution? He changed the hologram to show humanity's expansion into space. When we finally reached the stars and met the Council, we learned something that shocked us. Almost every species keeps most of their population on their homeworld. The Teluvian Empire has 14 billion people. 12 billion live on the Teluvian homeworld. The Forge clans have 8 billion citizens. 7 billion on Forge Prime. Admiral Kront shifted uncomfortably. Our homeworlds are well defended. There is no need to scatter our populations across multiple systems. Until something happens that your defenses cannot stop, Marcus replied. A supernova. A plague. A technological disaster. An asteroid that slips through your screens. Any one of 1,000 things that could destroy a planet. He zoomed the hologram out to show the entire galaxy. Humans currently number 22 billion people. Only 4 billion live on Earth. The rest are spread across our 600 colonies. None of those colonies has more than 50 million people. We deliberately keep our population small and distributed. Ambassador Telver was beginning to understand. You are not trying to conquer the galaxy. You are trying to ensure that humanity cannot be wiped out by a single catastrophe. Exactly, Marcus said. Every colony we establish is another insurance policy. Another guarantee that if something terrible happens, humanity will survive. It is not about power or territory. It is about the deep, fundamental fear that every human carries. The fear that one day something will happen that ends everything. Empress Leandra studied the population distribution charts. But 600 colonies in 200 years is still extremely aggressive expansion. You are taking resources, occupying space that could be used by other species. Look at the colonies we chose, Marcus said, highlighting specific systems on the map. 70% of them are in systems you classified as marginal or worthless. High radiation zones. Unstable stars. Planets with harsh gravity or toxic atmospheres. We specifically chose places that no one else wanted because we did not want to compete with you. He pulled up detailed records. Colony 17 is on a planet with gravity 1.4 times Earth normal. The atmosphere is filled with sulfur compounds. You classified it as uninhabitable. We have 3 million people there now, living in sealed habitats, working in extreme conditions. Why? Because it is one more place where humanity can survive. The hologram showed images of humans living in these harsh conditions. Children playing in protected domes. Families working together to build new structures. Scientists studying alien ecosystems. These are not military outposts, Marcus said. These are not strategic positions. These are homes for people who volunteered to live in difficult conditions because they believe in humanity's survival. They are farmers and teachers and engineers who wake up every day in places that would kill them if their life support failed. All because they want to ensure that their children's children will have a future. Admiral Crunt examined the data. If this is true, why did you not simply explain this to the Council? Why all the secrecy? Why infiltrate our systems? Marcus laughed bitterly. We tried. 73 years ago, when Earth first joined the Council, we explained our fear of extinction. We asked permission to establish colonies in marginal systems. Do why?